Let's go through some of the high points. This is not exhaustive. Again, the two big kinds of insurance you need to worry about aside from staffing. Staffing has its own sets of insurance: unemployment, workers' compensation. For your library of things, regardless of how big you are, regardless of whether you are a tool shed in someone's backyard or a big organization that owns your building, please get both of these kinds of insurance. Do your best. Our sister library in DC just had a series of break-ins. They lost almost all of their inventory, and it was not insured enough to replace it. They were able to raise the funds, but it was really scary. As many holes as our insurance system has, having insurance is a great thing. So the big one is property insurance. If we are loaning things, if we have libraries of things, we own a lot of things and they're worth money. And so if we lose them, if they get broken, if they get stolen, we want to be able to replace them. Typically, property insurance also covers any item or any building that you own as a homeowner. If I had a library of things in my backyard, and my homeowner's insurance would cover that property, that shed, on everything in it. As an organization, you need to think about it the same way. Typically, your property insurance does not cover damage to leased property, which is something you need to know. So we lease our space, we rent it, and our property insurance doesn't cover our building. So that's something to make very sure of with your landlord, that the building is covered, that they have appropriate insurance. Especially if you have like gas-powered tools or anything that could cause a fire. Just make sure that you have that discussion with your landlord. If this happened, who would be responsible for replacing the window if it got broken, things like that. The tricky thing with getting property insurance, there's a couple tricky things. One, let strangers have our things and take them home, right? This is not something that most insurance brokers are used to, and it's a pretty high risk, right? So a lot of insurers are concerned about the risk to property if people take it home, and we hope that they bring it back. Some property insurance policies for libraries of things don't cover theft for that reason, or not theft by member. They would cover a break-in, but not loss in the course of business. It also requires you to value your inventory, which if you get to be as large and old as we have before going out on your own as a nonprofit is a huge task. So I really encourage you, as you are building your inventory, keep track of how much things are worth. Just do it on the front end. Jason last week, I think, talked about some of the inventory management software that's available. Almost all of it has a place where you can record value. Do it early. It's hard to catch up. The other big category is liability insurance. This covers damage to other people and the things that they own. This can also be pretty tricky to get for some lendable items like ladders, table saws. For example, our liability insurance policy does not allow us anything but a saw stop table saw. They have that safety feature where people can't cut their finger off. We cannot even loan a saw stop table saw out for somebody to go home and cut their fingers off with. They won't do it. It can be tricky to get liability insurance if you are a library of things that lends anything dangerous. If you're lending camping gear, maybe a little easier. Kitchen stuff, maybe. If you're lending chainsaws, that risk is high, right? So having a strong user waiver also really helps. So your liability insurance broker will probably want to see your waiver, and they might have some language that they need you to include. So it's also worth having some samples from other libraries, having some contract lawyers, maybe volunteers, look at your waiver as well. Okay, so this is the dorkiest part of my entire presentation. Let's talk about NAICS codes. These are the Census Bureau's designation for what the heck you are. And there is not a good one for us yet. That's one thing that I hope we can work on as a collective. But these codes are used to categorize businesses, not just for insurance, for the census really, but it's what the insurance companies use to figure out who we are and what the risk is. So there are some options. We have not, I would say, as an industry, I don't think we've settled on one that works. It can be a negotiation, right? So if your insurance broker says, I think that you're a tool rental business, and you could come back and say, no, we're a civic and social organization. Here's why. So it's a conversation to have with your broker if you have the capacity. These are some from the current NAICS database. So these codes are current as of 2022. They change every couple of years. So if somebody recommends one to you and then you don't see it later, it may have just changed. They may go away. Sometimes they go away. Sometimes they get added. These are some that you might consider using. If someone asks you for an NAICS code, instead of giving you one, here's a list. You can choose one.